All right, let's talk about it. Let's deconstruct one of the most powerful and uncomfortable human emotions, the one your brain loves to use as a secret weapon against you: shame.
You know the feeling, right? That sudden, full-body cringe from a memory you thought you'd buried years ago, and of course, it decides to pop up right when you're trying to fall asleep.
So it's 3 a.m. and your brain decides, hey, now's a great time to replay that moment in glorious 4K. And you know deep down that literally no one else on the entire planet remembers it. So why? Why does your brain do this? Well, believe it or not, it's because your brain thinks that embarrassing moment might have actually killed you. Seriously.
So to figure out why our brains are so dramatic, we got to peel back the first layer here and look at shame's evolutionary purpose. Because it turns out it's not a bug, it's a feature.
Yeah, researchers like Daniel Schneitzer, for example, they argue that shame actually evolved as a defense mechanism. Its goal isn't really to make you feel awful. It's designed to keep you connected to the people you need to survive.
Think about it. For our ancient ancestors, life was all about small, tight-knit groups. Being valued by your tribe meant everything. We're talking food, protection, survival, the whole deal. So, getting devalued or even worse, rejected, that was basically a death sentence. So what did our brains do? They developed this super intense alarm system to make sure that never ever happened.
Okay, so how does that ancient programming show up today? Let's zoom in and see what's actually going on inside your brain during one of those classic 3 a.m. cringe attacks.
This is where it gets really wild. Research from UCLA found that your brain, well, it literally doesn't know the difference between a broken arm and a broken heart. Social pain, embarrassment, rejection, it lights up the exact same parts of the brain as physical pain. It hurts because your brain thinks you're actually hurt.
So that time you waved back at a stranger who was actually waving to the person behind you, your brain treats that like a near-death experience. No joke. It gives that memory priority encoding. It wraps it in bubble wrap, puts a big red critical sticker on it, also you never make that fatal mistake again.
And this all feeds into something called the spotlight effect. It's this feeling that when we mess up, there's a giant spotlight on us, and our mistake is being broadcast on the social jumbotron for everyone to see. But the reality? Hardly anyone even noticed. We just massively overestimate how much people are paying attention to our blunders.
I mean, the studies on this are wild. They show we think other people are obsessing over our screw-ups up to 8 times more than they actually are. Just let that sink in. While you're at home replaying your mistake over and over, they've completely forgotten about it. Why? Because they're way too busy obsessing over their own embarrassing moments.
Okay, so let's peel back another layer. Sometimes this whole system can kick into overdrive. It becomes more than just a passing cringe. And we see this really clearly when we look at things like PTSD.
There was a really important study back in 2007 that looked at PTSD patients, and it made this critical distinction. You've got intrusive memories. That's the quick sensory flashback, like a flash of an image or a sound. But then you have rumination, and that's the long, drawn-out thought process where you're just going over it again and again and again, trying to pick it apart.
And this research, which was published in the journal Memory, was a huge deal. It was one of the first times science really separated that initial flash of memory from the story we tell ourselves about it afterwards. It helped us see how our minds process these tough events in different ways.
So here's the kicker, the really crucial takeaway. Anxiety? That's usually tied to that initial intrusive flash. But shame? Shame is the fuel for the rumination. It's the shame that keeps you stuck in that loop, that hamster wheel of thought, asking yourself, why did I do that? Why did I say that? For hours.
All right, we're getting to the very core of the onion now. This is where we find shame's connection to something super ancient, super deep, and totally involuntary, a biological defense mechanism.
What scientists are finding is that shame is directly linked to a primal defense mechanism called tonic immobility. You probably know it better as freezing. Yeah, that deer in the headlights feeling where you just can't move.
And look, this isn't just some psychological quirk. It is a hardwired biological survival response that kicks in way before you have a chance to think about it. It's an automatic, obligatory system, meaning you don't choose it. It's designed to signal submission when you're facing a threat. And that threat could be a tiger or just a really harsh comment from someone.
And here's what's so brutal about this, because we don't realize that freezing is an automatic response, that we literally can't control it. We end up blaming ourselves for it. We feel ashamed of our own reaction, which just piles another painful layer of shame on top of the original event. It's a vicious cycle.
Okay,
That was a pretty deep dive into the core of shame, so let's come back up for air. The big question is, can we do anything about this? Is there a way to manage this powerful system? Well, luckily, science has found a pretty practical tool to help your brain finally close the file on these memories.
So researchers figured out that these sticky, cringy memories often feel stuck for a reason. Your brain basically sees them as an open case file, an unresolved threat. It's like a document left open on your mental desktop because the memory always stops right at the worst part, the moment of peak danger.
The technique, then, is actually surprisingly simple. You have to complete the memory. The next time that embarrassing moment hits you, don't stop at the cringe. Don't let the movie end there. You have to force yourself to keep playing the tape all the way through to the boring, totally safe, mundane stuff that happened right after.
Because by adding that boring ending, and then I got in my car and drove home and made a sandwich, you're sending a critical signal to your brain. You're basically telling that ancient panicked survival system, hey, look, the threat is over. We survived. And that allows the brain to finally go, oh, okay, threat resolved, file closed. And it can move that memory into the long-term archives where it belongs. So, after all that, what's the big takeaway here? After peeling back all those layers of the onion, what did we actually find at the center?
Look, understanding the science of shame isn't going to make the feeling just magically disappear, but it can give you a completely new way to relate to it. Shame isn't a sign that you're broken or flawed. It's actually evidence that you're a deeply social creature, hardwired for connection. It's an ancient and, yeah, universal part of the human story.